He is arguably one of the most famous military pilots of the 20th century. What we have is his flight activity report for his entire military career. As a pilot, any pilot, it's imperative that one keeps track of all of the flying time that you might do so that you can continue your accreditation and get promoted and keep a record of your activities. And the military will keep track of a pilot's flight record in its own files, in its own archives, and also give a copy to the pilot to take with him as he is transferred around from base to base. So what we have are over 30 years of documents recording every flight Paul Tibbets ever took as a military pilot, from his first training days in the 1930s when he first joined what was the Army Air Corps at that time, through World War II when he was a secret bombing pilot over Europe, and then he was involved in secret tests, flight tests of, in preparation for dropping the atomic bomb, to the Enola Gay flight, to his post-war career where he continued to be a test pilot, and afterwards. So it's a tremendous document. There are over 500 pages in it. Every flight he ever took is reflected in the pages of these documents.
Every flight, even during the military testing and everything?
Everything. Everything is there.
How descriptive is the description?
Well,
I'm just curious.
Well, you know, there's sort of an inverse, you know, the amount of information is inversely proportional to the secrecy of the mission. So there's lots of information about the training flights, because who cares if anybody discovers that information? But there is, you know, there are very brief descriptions of the Enola Gay flight or some of the secret bombing missions, since that information would be classified.
So, for example, like during those types of flights, what type of information would they put? Just like the date that it was taken and the time?
Well, the date, the time, the plane that you fly, the length of the flight, the people who will participate in the flight, who's the pilot, who's the co-pilot, and the success or failure of the mission, which actually, when you think about it, is quite a bit of information.
It's actually quite a bit, because they also tell you where they're going, too. On some of them,
some
probably.
Of them, not all of them, but on some of them they do tell you where they're going, because you know most flights start at point A and end at point B. Sometimes you go out and come back.
The scenic route.
Yeah, individual sheets will be, you know, are filled out and then bound into the folder. So you start at the back. These are the earliest flights.
Now I noticed that, because I've seen, you know, the pilot's books, where you handwrite them in when you're doing a flight, but these were all obviously done on a typewriter.
Right. These are activities. So these are compiled. This is not something done during the flight. This is compiled after the flight and on the ground. He's gone through and made lots of corrections himself, because again, it's important for him as an officer to have the total number of his hours correctly tallied, so he can move up the chain of the command. So he's done an awful lot of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. What kind of collector had this? Was it from his family?
This is from the family.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. This one looks like it should belong in a museum.
It's a neat piece, that's for sure.
It's quite fascinating.
So he's gone through and he's made an awful lot of corrections in here. Let's see. Most of them are signed by his officers at various places, but he's had to sign off on several of them too. This is George Marquardt, was a famous or well-known officer in the Pacific during the end of World War II.
That's pretty interesting. You see all the classic planes too.
Yeah.
There's B-25.
B-25, and so he flew a lot of B-25s. This is kind of a summary of the previous one. From Roswell, New Mexico. So this would have been the summary of his activity during the time they were training to drop the bomb. They dropped the bomb, and then just after.
Oh, very interesting. So this was 1946.
Mm-hmm. This is when this document was generated.
Wow.
Yeah.